guys, listen, so we've been off air for a very long time and we are back. Now, the hard truth seeks to speak to captains of industry and to probe into the matters that matter to you. Over the years, we've had huge personalities on the show, and we promise to do just that. But it's to actually hold our leaders accountable and to ensure that our nation building and the discussions around it involves you and I. So we are being the voice of the voiceless, bringing you the answers that you want and the hard truth this season 16, seeks to do that. Well, Akusa, where have you been? I needed to take time off air to take care of my girls, be with family, and to restructure and come back with a solid season 16, which starts tonight. What should we expect? We are talking about African integration. It's about time we bring the conversation to Ghana. What happens in other African countries matter to all of us. So yes, expect personalities from Africa. Expect personalities from the diaspora. And listen, there will be some polygraph sessions. Those of you who have been lying. That's a lighter side, but really we'll have some few sessions on polygraph where we'll put our leaders on their toes. And we'll find out if they are really telling the truth or not. I'm all the way from Nigeria. Mrs. Ugochukwu, the Chief Executive Officer of the Elumelu Foundation, is our guest tonight. And I'm really excited about this interview, and I'm sure we'll have a blast. So season 16 of The Hard Truth starts now. My name is Nana Akosua Samuels, and I'm happy to be back. Africa boasts of the highest entrepreneurship rate in the world. Yet, while entrepreneurial potential is high, the contribution to economic growth has been limited. One of the key actors in Africa contributing to solving this problem is the Elumelu Foundation, which identifies, trains, mentors, and funds young entrepreneurs in Africa. Now, just how impactful has the foundation been? And what does the future look like for entrepreneurship in Africa? To discuss this and more, I have with me the Chief Executive Officer of the Elumelu Foundation, Mrs. Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu, coming all the way from Nigeria to Enak Studios here in Accra, just for this interview. My name is Nana Akosua Samuels. Welcome to The Hard Truth. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Time to be here. How was the flight?
It was straightforward.
Yeah?
We're so close.
Very close. Good to have you in The Hard.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so moving on, the TF, as you call it, was founded in 2010, and that is to champion most entrepreneurs in Africa. It's been about 12 years. Tell us about the journey so far. How has it been, and how is it doing in Africa? Looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Africa, how is it?
I'm usually very modest, but what I'm going to say now may not sound so modest. And I think that the Elumelu Foundation has transformed the face of entrepreneurship on the African continent. If you think back 12 years ago, 2010, entrepreneurship was not something that was on the global agenda of most leaders, be it African or foreign governments. But today, entrepreneurship is firmly on the agenda. And I think that's not just because of the work that we do, but the work of everyone in the ecosystem, private and public sector alike. Because we know that the empowerment of our young, vibrant entrepreneurs is the true, sustainable way to economic development and poverty alleviation on the continent. So in 2010, the foundation was launched. And Mr. Elumelu wanted to give back because he has always seen himself as a product of luck. And so he wanted to democratize luck and institutionalize opportunity. Unfortunately, our continent, Africa, has its challenges. And we know that entrepreneurs in Africa have so many hills to climb and so many seas to swim to get to success. And so for us at the foundation, our bottom line is to help entrepreneurs make a success of their business. And that is why 5 years into the life of the foundation in 2015, we decided to drop all other activities and be laser focused on entrepreneurship empowerment. And that happened with the launch of the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program.
We know you founded about 15,000 entrepreneurs. So what kind of impact? What kind of impact are you having in the countries of these entrepreneurs?
So to date, we've funded over 15,000 entrepreneurs across all 54 African countries. And in terms of impact, for us, it's been quite phenomenal to see what these few entrepreneurs can do in their communities, in their countries, and in their businesses. So, for instance, PwC did a study 2 years ago and found that the entrepreneurs who we had empowered had gone on to create 400,000 direct and indirect jobs across the continent. So just to give you a little overview of how we engage and have our intervention across the continent. So every January to March, we start our application portal, and that's the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program. And any entrepreneur anywhere in Africa can register, can apply. And once you apply, it doesn't matter if you don't have a business. Even if you have a business idea, you will be considered. Because we believe that there's so many young Africans who have ideas, who are brilliant, but just have not been given that foot in the door to start the entrepreneurial journey.
Great. So of the entrepreneurs you founded, how often do you see some of them fail? And what are the most common reasons for these failures, and what are you doing to deal with them?
So for us, the stories of failure, and I don't like to use the word failure.
Right.
So the stories of not succeeding at what you intended to are as important as the stories of success, because it is important for us to know what was the cause of your inability to get to where you want to get to. And we found from our monitoring and evaluation, which we have a very robust monitoring and evaluation framework, that it ranges from lack of an enabling environment to a multiple taxation system to access to capital, because what we give them is this initial seed capital that they need to start their business. Right. But then at a point, they would need growth capital. Of course, we also have situations where the entrepreneurs themselves give up. One of the things I tell our entrepreneurs is that for every successful businessman or business owner, they have at least 10 to 20 failures, but you don't see the failure. You only notice them when they succeed. So the difference between those that are successful and those that aren't is that those that are successful never stop. They never give up. Yes, you can pivot.
Right, but let's look at this again. I mean, it's you give the funds to across Africa, and then there will definitely be, like you said, disparities in such countries. Now, so in which countries do these entrepreneurs do well? Which of the countries they do well? Which other of the countries don't do well? And what is the foundation determined to get into it to get solutions for the disparities?
So for us, I don't think we have seen a higher rate of failure in one country as opposed to the next. What we do see is a higher rate of interest. So countries in West Africa have the most interest in entrepreneurship, because we see that over 60% of our applicants come from West Africa, followed by East Africa and then South Africa. So North Africa usually has the lower numbers. And so it goes to follow.
Why is that?
We have done some studies into this, and we find that there's a cultural barrier to entrepreneurship in these areas. People are usually more into looking for government work, paid employment, and they don't believe that if they step out in faith and take that risk, that it will pay off. So we're trying to reorient the young people in those areas, especially the women, because religious barriers also prevent women from taking that step and knowing that, yes, I can do this on my own and I can succeed on my own and I will be a business owner. A recent study we did with Stanford University looked at our data in terms of how women apply and how men apply. And we found that women who apply explain and describe their businesses in terms of the service they will offer. I will do this. I will help with this. Men who apply explain their business in terms of ownership. I will own this and I will claim, So they found that already in Africa, there is a mindset that says women serve and men own. And so these are some of the things that we're trying to re-educate our girl child at the African continent, that you can do and be anything you want to do and be. Don't let your society or your religion determine who you are.
So I'm guessing we have more male entrepreneurs than female entrepreneurs?
Well, initially we did. When we first started the program, we had 29% female participation. It was ranging between 25 and 29% over the first 3 to 4 years. But I'm so pleased to say that last year, we had 70% of our beneficiaries were women. And that's because of the concerted effort that not just the foundation, but our partners have had for gender inclusivity. Because we all know that when you empower a woman, you empower a nation. Indeed, you empower 10 generations. And so it is really critical for us to give women that opportunity to start their businesses. We know that 70% of the small and medium enterprises in Africa are owned by women. Go to the villages. The farmers are the women. The people, the traders are the women. But they own less than 10% of the property, and they earn less than 30% of the income.
I see. Now, while we celebrate against May, it would seem that we still have a lot to do. World Bank statistics shows that early stage ventures, including SMEs, face a huge financial gap of about $330 billion. Looking at this huge gap, which has been more evident due to the pandemic, of course. So what is being done again? Or is what's being done sufficient enough, or there's a cause for concern?
It's not sufficient, but I must say that
But 330 is quite a number.
It's huge. It's huge. So in the last 5 years, right, there's been a considerable increase. We've begun to see the emergence of African unicorns, tech entrepreneurs whose businesses are valued at over $1 billion. So that's new in Africa. And what we've seen is that we want to see it trickle down, because we know that those who need $100 million, $200 million, they have access to the capital, and that's the truth. But the problem is those who need $500,000 and under. The missing middle is what they're called, because for the traditional financial institutions, it's not worth the trouble. It's too risky, and it doesn't pay enough. So the venture capitalists don't look into the missing middle, neither do the traditional financial institutions. And that is why the model that the Tony Elumelu Foundation has employed is critical, to make sure that we focus on the people at the bottom of the pyramid, which is where majority of young Africans lie, and give them that hand up and give them that opportunity to start their entrepreneurial journey and make their way up, so that by the time they get to the middle of the pyramid, we have de-risked them and they're now attractive to the banks or to the VCs.
The foundation's activities are, I would say, symbolic to your founder's philosophy of Afri capitalism, which is a belief that Africa can provide private sector, the power to transform the continuing with a long-term investment for both generations, economic prosperity, and all of that. Now, so beyond the foundation, how would you describe the response to the philosophy?
I would say that there's an African renaissance coming up. I mean, look at Ghana, for instance. Every time I come to Ghana, I'm just so proud, I'm so thrilled at what I see here in terms of the development that's happened over the last 10 years in leaps and bounds. And we know that the African private sector is stepping up to the plate. So like you said, Afri capitalism is an economic philosophy that says that the private sector in Africa should and can lead the charge for sustainable economic development. And what does this mean? This means prioritizing entrepreneurship. This means creating with our youth a job-creating mentality and not a job-seeking mentality. This means long-term investment with patient capital that is not looking for immediate returns, but is looking to invest for generations to come.
Well, but others will say that, the Afri capitalism is a way of philosophy to marginalize the role of government and transfer more influence to the private sector. Is that how you see it?
Not at all. It's a partnership, because private sector cannot do it alone, but private sector needs to take the lead, because government's job is not to create jobs. Government job is not to generate revenue. Their job is to create security, and to create an enabling environment. And once that enabling environment is there, the private sector will do the rest. I always say that, yes, Africa has a lot of problems, but each of those problems are business opportunities waiting for the right entrepreneur to bring a solution.
But if we bring the solution and we don't have the money for it, so what happens then?
And so that's the vicious cycle we find ourselves in. And so that's why it is critical that we work together, private sector, financial institutions, development organizations, both in Africa and outside of Africa, to bridge that gap that African entrepreneurs have in terms of access to capital.
The foundation is doing quite well. Would you encourage more of such or more Africans or more entrepreneurs who've made it to actually help out like the Tony Elumelu Foundation is doing now?
100%. I always say that in this sector, there's no such thing as competition. There's only collaboration. A wise man once said, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Africa is the only continent on the planet getting younger. By the year 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be Africans. So our burgeoning youth population could either be the world's greatest opportunity or the world's greatest catastrophe. Which it is, depends on us, what we do today.
I'm interested in the limitation of the philosophy. Can it really work around us, or can we work around the limitations of the philosophy?
Unfortunately, I'm biased because I don't see the limitation.
Really?
I don't see the limitation. Because what it's saying is that we need to be more active in understanding that as a business person, as a private sector leader, you cannot only be focused on profit. You cannot only be focused on making money for yourself. You have to think of generations to come, and you have to also create strategic investments that will improve the lives of people. So take Harris Holding, for instance. Harris Holding believes in transforming lives, improving lives and transforming Africa through strategic investments. And that is why you see that Harris Holding has investments in power. So over 20% of the power produced in Nigeria is produced by a Harris Holding subsidiary company, Transcorp Power. You have investments in hospitality, investments in medical care and medical insurance, things that will genuinely improve the lives of ordinary people and empower them to go on and be prosperous in whatever area they choose to live in. And that is what private sector needs to have as their dual role is, yes, make profit, but also do good, create impact. And if we have that philosophy, I think Africa will be better off for it.
You're still watching The Hard Truth. Mrs. Ugochukwu is still here. We'll be right back. Do stay. Welcome back. You're still watching The Hard Truth. Mrs. Ugochukwu, Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu, the Chief Executive Officer for the Tony Elumelu Foundation, is still here. We are so grateful to her for being on The Hard Truth. Now, through the TEF Alumni Network, you are creating a strong global network of I would say, you call them change makers, empowered change makers who are expected to assist the foundation achieve its target. What kind of influence do you wield through the network, and how do you position, or how well positioned are you for them to take over the Afro-capitalism drive?
That is so wonderful, this question you've asked, because I've never looked at it from that direction, that they continue our work long after, not that we will ever stop this work, but they continue the work, and they are the foot soldiers on the ground. I always say that they're the heroes of our journey to Africans' development through entrepreneurship. And take COVID pandemic, for instance. They were simply amazing. Most of their businesses were hard hit, but we knew that the most important thing through the lockdowns was that you stay positive and that you keep strategizing and keep innovating. And we found out that our entrepreneurs were pivoting. We had entrepreneurs who were fashion designers becoming manufacturers of PPE products. We had, right here in Ghana, one of our entrepreneurs joined hands with the government to manufacture tech-enabled testing kits for COVID, rapid COVID testing. So we found that our entrepreneurs are really, really changing the continent, one business at a time, one community at a time, and we're very proud of the work that they do.
I see. So from 2015 to 2021, you've disbursed over 1.6 million dollars to 333 Ghanaian entrepreneurs across, various sectors. If you were to access or assess Ghana in terms of entrepreneurial development, what would you say? I'm interested. What would that be? What would you say?
I think Ghana is fastly becoming the jewel of Africa. Ghana is the lighthouse now for us, because take, for instance, the policy, and that is why enabling environment is so important. So we have one of our entrepreneurs who manufactures chocolate. Her chocolate, believe me, in Lagos, I'm always ordering her chocolate.
Wow, what brand is that? Okay.
57. Oh. Delicious. And our entrepreneur is Kimberly Addison. So absolutely delicious.
Kudos, Kimberly. Yay, Kimberly.
And, at the end of the day, if the government did not create that enabling environment, she may not be successful. She certainly would not have had the space created in the market for her. But I know that the government has recently said that no more exporting of cocoa. Everything must be manufactured and value added. And so that's what we want to see across Africa, especially with the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. We have the natural resources, we have the human capital to produce everything at the highest standards. What we need to do now is to create the enabling environment. So we need to create ease of movement as far as not just human beings are concerned, but capital and goods. So unfortunately, I'm not ordering the chocolate as much as I'd like to, because getting it can sometimes be an issue. And of course, I have to change my naira to dollars before I then pay her in cedis. Why do we have to have those barriers? So we need to have our governments work together to break down those barriers, to ensure that there truly is the infrastructure to sustain the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. Because if the infrastructure isn't there, then it will just be talk. And we don't want it to be just be talk.
I see. Talking about government, over the years, we've had government implement various incubator and entrepreneurial support schemes in bid to promote entrepreneurship and create jobs, quote, I would say. But these schemes have, I would say, been attracted, or they've been attacked and criticized, looking at the way they've been handled. No proper monitoring system, inappropriate fund disbursement, among others. What are your views when it comes to government-sponsored incubators and entrepreneurship support schemes?
So you are making the case for Afri-capitalism.
Yes.
And the answer to that is quite simple. You can't be all things to all people. And that is why collaboration is so important. Because if you have someone who is a policymaker and you now ask them to become a private sector leader or an entrepreneurship trainer, it doesn't quite work. So what I would advise is that government should partner with private sector when it comes to interventions and schemes like that.
Partnership, what exactly? Because we hear that let's partner, private sector needs to partner with government. Let's look at practical intervention schemes. What kind of partnerships are we looking at here?
So, for instance, entrepreneurship empowerment. Right. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you've seen a tried and tested model that's working, like the Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program, then key into that. And that's why you have organizations that have partnered with us, like the European Commission. The European Union is committed over 20 million euros last year to empower African women, only African women, across 20 African countries. Now, they have the financial muscle to run their own program, but they said, you know what? These guys are doing it. They're credible, they're transparent. We've seen the work that they're doing. Let's just partner with them. And that frees you up to do other things that only government can do.
So what advice would you give to, I'm sure government is listening now, but what advice would you give to government who says, well, we know we have such foundations, but we promise our people to create jobs for them. It's not working. What advice would you give to governments like that?
The advice I would give is that at the end of the day, people are tired of a hand out. They want a hand up. People don't want to be given fish. They want to be taught how to fish. So look for the experts, those who are experts in training, those who are experts in funding, and those who are experts in monitoring and evaluation. Because it is not a flash in the pan. Entrepreneurship empowerment is a long-term journey. It's not something you do for 1 year or 2 years or even 4 years and say, okay, I'm done. You're never done. Our alumni are part of us for as long as we live. The monitoring and evaluation continues 20, 30, 50 years from now. Because that is the only way you can ensure accountability, and that is the only way you can track what's working, what's not working, and what you can improve on.
Now, talking about that, the foundation's training program is expected to run until, I think, 2025. After 2025, what next?
So that's the preconception. Because in 2015, our founder made a $100 million commitment to identify, train, mentor, and fund 10,000 African entrepreneurs over 10 years. That was his own commitment, and that will be fulfilled. And we are 7 years into it. So since then, in collaboration with our partners, the foundation has invested over $102 million into the entrepreneurship program. $70 million has gone direct into the hands of African entrepreneurs. And out of those funds, about $650 million has been provided by the foundation. So what we're saying is that beyond 2025, we will likely be renewing our commitment, but most importantly, be deepening and scaling existing partnerships with partners such as the United Nations Development Program, the European Commission, ICRC, International Committee for the Red Cross, and of course, hopefully, more African governments. At the moment, we're working with the Botswanan government and the government of the Republic of Benin, but we hope to work with more African governments.
Let me ask you, Ms. Ugochukwu, why 5,000? Why not 10,000? Why 5,000 seed money to entrepreneurs? I mean, need more money. So why that seed money 5,000?
Well, we decided 5,000 because we said what we want is not to train you and then now say good luck, wish you well. We want to train you and give you that minimum seed capital you need to start your journey. So for a lot of them, they need much more. But for very many of them, they don't even need up to that.
So let's stick to the much more. So what happens to the much more for the
So with $5,000, you can start your business. You can incorporate your company. You can prove your concept.
And I need more money.
There's a pilot. There's something called pilot, right? So you've proved your concept. You now have track record. Now you can take your business to a bank and say, listen, I've started this. I've tested the product. This is the result, and I need to scale.
Is that an equity process? So Enak Studios, you say, oh, we need $5,000, you give it to us. Oh, we need more money. Do we have an agreement like that? Do we do equity? What's in for you? What's in for the foundation?
So what's in it for us is simply this. We are successful when our entrepreneurs are successful. When they make a success of their business, then we have achieved our purpose. And that is why we wake up every morning.
By what? Getting equity?
No, by creating jobs, generating revenue. So some don't need additional revenue. Some are, that $5,000 is more than enough to have a going concern that serves their community, serves their families, and employs 5 to 7 people. Some need more. So for instance, we have a second stage funding that we make available to entrepreneurs, but this one is now based on merit, based on track record, based on governance, based on your financials, because this is now serious business.
Is that free as well? Is that free?
Sometimes it's debt. So for instance, we have a partnership with the Agence Française de Développement of the French government, and it's a risk guarantee scheme. So what they've done is to take the risk, 50% of any loan that we give to our alumni. Okay? Now that's something that they've done in conjunction with UBA, right? Now another intervention as far as second stage capital is concerned is, like in Nigeria, we have the Nigerian Export Promotion Commission, who empowered entrepreneurs who export with another $20,000. Now, at this level, it's equity, it's debt, but sometimes it's still grant. But the most important thing is that entrepreneurs have to show good governance, they have to show financial discipline, and they have to show track record.
I see. Let's talk about the future. Looking at the future of entrepreneurship in Africa, what forces do you see or expect to shape entrepreneurship in the next decade?
Technology, 100%. You know, Africa missed the first 3 industrial revolutions. We cannot afford to miss the 4th industrial revolution, which is the digital revolution. Yeah. We, at the foundation, we train our entrepreneurs that you must be leveraging technology in one form or another. Otherwise, you don't exist in the 21st century. You must be disrupting, otherwise you're being disrupted. So I think that for Africa, what is going to make the difference for us is technology.
Right, so talking about technology too, the technology space will hold the existing market, like you're talking about. In Africa, how positioned are we to take advantage of the fourth industrial revolution?
It is brighter than you think.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why.
Are we ready? Are we ready for it?
I think that we're ready, and I'll tell you why. 20 years ago, all of West Africa did not have up to 400,000 landlines. Today, we have over 600 million mobile phones. Now, as far as mobile money is concerned, mobile money transfers and mobile money transactions, Africa is leading the world. Africa is doing triple digits, whereas other parts of the world is doing single digits in terms of billions of dollars in transactions, mobile money transactions.
Yeah.
So that shows us the potential. And this happened in less than 20 years. And that tells us that with technology, Africa will leapfrog into the 21st century and even overtake other economies because the human capital is here, the natural resources are here, the market is here. What more do we need?
We'll come to the mobile money thing, but let's talk about Africa's startup investment trends. Continue to grow, especially in the fintech space. That is according to, I think, a group called Brighter Bridges. The report, however, reveals that gender disparities remain as one of the huge disparities when it comes to that. Do you think women are adequately represented as a continent embraces the fourth industrial revolution?
Not at all. That is one area that we need to do a lot of work in terms of gender inclusivity as far as technology, technological education, and upskilling is concerned. And we are looking at introducing coding and software development into our training. We're looking at ensuring that women have those basics, but it starts with our schools. And that's where the partnership with government comes in. So we can no longer be teaching children or preparing them for the world 50 years ago. Our curriculum right now, unfortunately, is still preparing children for the world 50 years ago. We need to be preparing them for the world 50 years from now. 50% of the jobs that will exist in 2050 do not exist today. It is only through innovation that we can make sure that we have young people who are innovative and think outside the box and will be ready for the world of 2050. And technology is critical for this, and it starts in school.
You're ready?
No, we're not ready. We're not ready.
You're not ready. You'll be right back. Do stay. Welcome back. You are still watching The Hard Truth. Mrs. Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu is the Chief Executive Officer of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And let me ask you again. We talked about mobile money. You made that earlier. You said that earlier. Now, digital payments have brought, I would say, lower income in rural communities to financial system. We're talking about financial inclusion here. However, we have witnessed a trend where some African governments are becoming obsessed with taxing mobile money and other electronic transfers. Can you talk of, or we can even cite Uganda, we can cite Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Cameroon. Now in Ghana, we have something called the e-levy, that the government is charging a 1.5% tax on mobile money transactions on monies above 100 Ghana cedis, approximately is about $14. Many have described this move as a lazy approach to raising, funds or revenue, and that could erode the gains made in the financial inclusion. Is that how you see it?
Bringing the unbanked into the financial system is so critical to Africa's development, and governments need to foster financial inclusivity and not create a deterrence. So the taxes, I'm not going to say much because every government has its reasons and its way, but I believe that we should find a way to get banks to create that inflow for the mobile money entrepreneurs, because that's becoming one of the biggest businesses in African rural areas.
Government shouldn't tax us.
Sorry?
Should government tax its citizens for any transactions made?
Absolutely not. That's why I'm saying that the taxing should be for the big financial institutions who are able to access much more cash flow from the rural area than they were able to before the advent of mobile money. But whatever you do, don't tax the unbanked, because we're trying to bring them into the financial system and not to scare them
So what
off.
would you tell our government? They are taxing a 1.5 billion. What would you tell the government of Ghana?
I would say, if you must do it, keep it at the very minimum. It should be 0.01% or even less.
Right. Now, while speaking about Africa's priorities, the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akumi Adesina, in April this year, I guess, he warned that Africa must prepare for the inevitability on food crisis, and that to fend off the food crisis, the continent must rapidly increase its food production. How ready are we as entrepreneurs when it comes to the food space or the ecosystem or the agricultural space? Are we ready for that?
Sometimes adversity is a blessing. And Africa should be the food basket of the world. But because we have not created the infrastructure for this, we are importing so much of what we eat. And so if this adversity comes, perhaps it will force us to look inward. We have fertile land, we have the human capital. Why don't we grow our own food, build the roads and the railways that will ensure that the food can get from where it's grown in the rural areas to the cities where it's needed? So for us to prepare for this, we need to empower African farmers, we need to create the infrastructure, and we need to stop the waste. 50% of the food produced in Africa is wasted because it doesn't find its way to the market. So I think that this adversity, even though we don't want it, we hope it doesn't come, but if it comes, it will be a blessing, because
so
it will make us look
African
inward.
entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, what must they do to revert this threat?
Well, first and foremost, I think that the emphasis on agriculture over the last 10 years has begun to yield dividend. You have, for instance, in our program, 30% of the largest sector is agriculture at 30%. So young people are beginning to see agriculture as a viable business and a viable way of earning a living and entering and having a professional life. So what African entrepreneurs who are in agriculture need to do is to begin now to prepare, to begin now to ensure that you have the financial capacity and the mechanization of your operations so that you can increase your yield and you can scale. Of course, we all know that access to fertilizer is going to be a major issue, which is what is going to increase the problem. But we have organic fertilizer, we have compost. So we need to increase training and capacity building, and let us teach our young people how to use our biodegradable materials to make compost.
There are so many people sitting at home, there are no jobs, they take the applications out, they are crying there are no jobs, and we're talking about agriculture now. What would you tell people with degrees, with masters and PhDs who are home doing nothing and waiting for, white-collar job, I would say?
Every problem you see around you is a business opportunity. Look around you, look around your community, and see how you can solve the problems by creating a business. So if you have a patch of land in the village, and thankfully we all have villages that we belong to, go to your village and find out what patch of land you can grow something in. It's as simple as that. Even snails are a very lucrative industry. Do you know that palm kernel shells that we throw away is actually used as biofuel in the Western world? We can begin to look at what we have around us and create value from that. So what I would say to young people who do not have jobs is we need to move away from a job-seeking mentality and move more towards a job-creating mentality.
Well, addressing climate change in Africa presents a 3 trillion economic investment opportunity in the continent, I think, by 2030. The private sector, especially SMEs, is obviously crucial or critical to adopting as well as mitigating climate change. But it's quite harder, or it is harder for SMEs to be focused on sustainability and green business to get some financial support, because there's a typical higher upfront cost and the markets are underdeveloped. Now, so how do we navigate these waters?
Again, I think Africa could be the green capital of the world because we have so much natural resources, and what we need to do is to look at how we can create climate smart practices in all that we do. And because we're still a developing economy, we can begin to incorporate these climate smart techniques into every area, from agriculture to waste management. So we have a lot of waste management entrepreneurs who actually have huge operations in terms of recycling. That is climate safe. We have entrepreneurs in agriculture who are now not using the plantain husks, for instance, which is usually thrown away, right, to create a biodegradable paper, which is an alternative to plastic packaging. So for us in Africa, climate change, the battle to stave off the climate disaster starts with our everyday life. It starts with using the resources we see around us in a smarter way, in a sustainable way, in a green way. We can be the climate capital the green capital of the world.
Right, the political scene across the continent is quite mixed. We have perceived liberalization and to the growth of democracy on one hand, and on the other hand, we have growing insecurities and the disturbing resurgence of military coups now in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea. What are your general thoughts on this, and what are the likely implications on businesses, on business development and investments?
So without security and peace, there is no business. So that is why Afrocapitalism is still about partnership and collaboration, because it is only government that can create the security and the peace that business needs to thrive. I think that the will is there. We know that most African governments today are democratically elected governments, except in the few countries that you've mentioned. And we do have a collaboration going on amongst the heads of state. AU, the African Union, is doing a lot. ECOWAS is doing a lot. So I think my call to action to African governments would be to really work together, because the insecurity we see happens in the border areas. So those places where people can move in and out of countries without any documentation, without identity, and that is where we see the porosity of insurgents and extremists being able to come and wreak havoc in communities. And again, I always say that 99.9% of Africa's problems is due to poverty. If we can solve the problem of poverty through entrepreneurship, we will solve the insecurity problem. Most of these young men who are, members of these terrorist organizations and creating the insecurity are there because they have no alternative. These terrorists are paying them $5 a month, and it is a viable option for them. So let us give them another option. Let us empower them. Let us reach the underserved, just as we did in the Sahel areas of Africa. We partnered with UNDP, and we went into Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Cameroon, to the real rural areas. This was before COVID. And we took the training to them. We had offline training. And the response was amazing, because they said no one had ever come to show them what other option they had. So we need to scale interventions like that. And if we give them opportunity, I assure you, if people are generating revenue and creating jobs, they don't have time to pick up guns and knives to kill themselves.
I see. Now, in recent times in Nigeria, you've witnessed an unprecedented level of insecurity, such as Boko Haram activities, banditry, kidnapping, Fulani clashes here and there. What has been the impact of growing insecurities on entrepreneurs in Nigeria, and how do you see, is there any hope mitigating the impact of that anytime soon?
Of course, there's always hope, and we believe there's light at the end of the tunnel. The insecurity in Nigeria is not endemic. It's not organic, it's contrived, it's not natural. And that's why we know that it's something that can be solved in 1 month, because it's not natural. So for us, what
would solve it? I'm interested. Really? But what would solve the issues in Nigeria? Please tell us.
What would solve it is the will from the top to make a difference. What would solve it is one leader.
Yes, so some would say that the state of insecurity in Nigeria is greatly a function of government failure. Do you agree?
That's why they call it hard truth, isn't it? Because I'm supposed to speak the hard truth.
Right.
But yes, because government is responsible to keep our property and life safe.
So why is the government delaying in doing that?
I can't answer for the government. I can't speak for the government. So what I will say is that most Nigerians are peace-loving people. What I will say is that for especially the young Nigerians, they don't see themselves as Hausa, Yoruba, or Igbo. They see themselves as Nigerians. We saw what happened with NSAS. The entire youth of Nigeria came together in one voice, and they were peaceful up until the end. We won't go into what created the unrest during the peaceful protests, but it just showed us that that principle of one Nigeria is true, and it is real, and the young people, they don't have time for tribal or religious differences. They don't.
Yes.
So I think that the
So
key,
it takes one person, the government, to do that. Why are they delaying? I'm still interested. What do you think the delay is? What's causing the delay? You said in 1 month it can be solved. So if that's right, why the delay?
Perhaps the will to solve it. Perhaps the will to solve it. But again, I can't speak for the government. I'm not there. I'm sure that there are reasons why there is delay in solving the problem. But like I said,
it can be solved in a month.
It can be solved in a month. It can be solved in a month. That is my conviction.
The insecurities in Nigeria can be solved.
It can be solved in a month. With the right leadership, engaging the youth.
Is President Buhari performing, in your opinion? I mean, do you think his performance has met the expectations of Nigerians?
I think that question can only be answered by Nigerians.
You are Nigerian.
That question can only be answered by Nigerians.
Now, I'm asking because economic indicators suggest that the Nigerian economy has deteriorated since he took office in 2015, the President Buhari took office in 2015. Between 2015 to ending of 2021, unemployment rate has increased from 9% to 32%. Inflation has increased from 9% to, I think, about 15%. Exchange rates increased from about 197 naira to 400 to $1, and over 400 naira to $1. I mean, this clearly shows that, or it clearly shows that things have gotten worse when Buhari took office. So again, is President Buhari the president of Nigeria? Is he meeting the expectations of Nigerians?
So I will answer this. Nigerians expect good governance and leadership accountability. And we are looking forward to the 2023 presidential elections to ensure that the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will be one who is accountable to the people of Nigeria, one who understands that good governance is the only thing that will get you re-elected in the next 4 years, is the only thing that will create a prosperous and a peaceful Nigeria. And I think that the people will speak come 2023.
So as it is now, is he performing?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu, for your time on the Heart. I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much.
I'm grateful. So, Mrs. Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu is the Chief Executive Officer of the Elumelu Foundation. I also take this opportunity to say a special thank you to Ma'am Bola Atta at the UBA Group. I will say a thank you to Mustafa. I will say she's from the Hairs Holdings. I will say thank you to Tony himself. Tony, thank you so much, sir. We are grateful for giving us this platform. I would also say thank you to Ibuko. Am I right?
Yes.
Ibuko, thank you so much. So you've been watching The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akusia Kunira Santis Samuels. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good evening.